5 seconds.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning, Grand Rising, greetings. Welcome to the October 5 edition of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And you're listening to it on Blog Talk Radio, also on the Rebound at ProduceJustice.com, which you can get the materials that Mr. Fuller will be discussing, in particular his book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, or just simply the code, which he will discuss later in detail as the program further itself along. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, here are the contact numbers. You can dial for 516-453-9921. Let me repeat that. 516-453-9921. If you have a question or a VGQ, be brief. Press the number 1 button, and you will get in rotation. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And it also will go into a rotation. And at some point in the future, it will be read. And I will give you the date and time that it will be read. You can also get into the chat room, which is available when you log in, I believe. And one of the questions that is in the chat this morning, thinking about CR, constructive results of whatever you do, what big or small thing did you do yesterday or whenever to help weaken or eliminate the global operating system of racism? Think about that. What did you do? Did you do any thing or contribute to that? You might want to do that, and we'll see how that goes. It's something to think about, it using the logic that the universe has given you. Okay, let me start off by saying good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay. Mr. Fuller, let's do this here as I am efforting to get a Gmail up here. Some information you might be interested in, Mr. Fuller, from the Muskogee Nation. I'll ask you about that later. This one right here says, this comes from Brother Nawab, says that one of the trending topics on social media is the revelation by various white people, including a number of white celebrities, that they bathe once a week, twice a month, or whenever they feel like it. And it's created many responses from blacks to the point out the historical fact that the black Moors who ruled Europe for over 700 years taught their white ancestors how to bathe and clean themselves up. This is why, to this day, there are bathhouses throughout Spain, Western Europe, and Turkey. And right now, Mr. Fuller, I can imagine you saying to yourself as you're hearing this VGQ question, here we go again with that, how great our ancestors were talk. That means nothing. And I get it, especially when we continuously have to go back hundreds of years and beyond to cite when we ruled or had some semblance of power on this planet. And so my question to you, Mr. Fuller, this morning is this. How did we, as the universal black man and woman of the planet who taught white people how to walk from crawling on all fours, how to literally wash their ass about astronomy, religion, sanitation, surgery, cosmetology, get to a point where these people now rule and dominate us? In other words, did we create our adversity and ruler all in our attempt to be altruistic humanitarians? And if we had never done that, would the white supremacist be as mighty and powerful as he is today?
Well, that's the question.
Yes.
I don't know. And according to compensatory logic, it doesn't matter within the framework of what needs to be done. It doesn't matter what anybody did, regardless of if everybody was all like people should be. And there's no record of that, of people ever being the quality of people that people should be. There's no recorded record. There were always flaws in people as far as everything in recorded history. So the ideal state is for everybody to be the quality of people that people should be. It doesn't make any difference if it was yesterday or 20 trillion years ago about people did this and people did that. Codification is about, we're here now, right this minute. What are we supposed to be doing now? That's everybody on the planet, or everybody in the known universe as we know it. Right this minute, what should everybody be doing? Everybody. And that's the only real question that counts. Talking about this and talking about that and what happened, and this, during this millennia and that millennia and the other millennia. This is an excellent thing to do as far as just recording. You record events. Events should be recorded, all events, if you can find out really what's going on and report the truth. And you just report it. But as far as talking about what should be done now, you just do it. Like recently, they're going back and forth in the schools about critical race theory and all of this. Well, white people and black people should just all sit down and say, what should you be doing now, right this minute? Miss Avery, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Snyder, Willie, Joan, Gloria, what should you be doing right this minute in your interaction with other people? And that's a question. And according to compensatory logic is, you can ask a question, is justice being done? Meaning what? Meaning what? Is everybody getting the help that they need, the constructive help? We look around just at a glance. No. Is anybody being mistreated anywhere? Yes. Stop the mistreatment and give everybody the help that is needed because it's needed. All constructive help. Well, let's sit down and talk about, what happened in the, and no, wait a minute. Hold on. Gloria, Willie, Mr. Graham, whomever you are, anywhere on the planet, stop the mistreatment. If anybody's being mistreated, stop it right now, right this second. That's what you have. You have time and you have energy and you're here. You're on the planet. I just read in the Washington Post this morning about people being here in what we call North America 23,000 years ago, at least 23,000. And they say plenty of evidence, it might have been 26,000. Well, they might find other evidence. It might be 26 million years ago. They came across the land bridge from Asia and Africa, according to the article in the Washington Post this morning in the Health and Science section. Well, it's not where you are, it's what you were doing. Everybody's been everywhere probably. At one time, it might have been just a little water on the planet. And for some mysterious reason, it just started seeping out of the ground and it got to be more and more and more. And the water shifted and the deserts shifted. What was once a desert was probably covered with water. Some scientists may say that. Some deserts anyway. Water was in one place. We see evidence of that now. And years ago, there was no water there. And then there are other places where water was there, and then the water disappeared. Climate changes, which possibly has gone on for millions and millions and trillions of years, maybe. Who knows? So what about people? And so what about people? What should people be doing with the time that they are given? A small time frame within, when you consider how long has time existed. So we're just here for a few minutes, you might say, a few seconds, really. When you compare, you might say, well, how long has existence existed? How long has space existed? Space, how long has it existed? Where's the time frame? But you have people. And people, or creatures called people. So it just comes down to just one thing in answer to the question. What should people be doing right this minute, wherever they are on the planet? And what's the logical first order of business? And according to the code, compensatory logic, the answer to that question is, well, the first thing is you guarantee that nobody's being mistreated, because mistreatment just makes for more problems, that's all. More problems among everybody. So you guarantee that nobody's being mistreated ever. And you also guarantee to the best of your ability that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now that's the conclusion I came to, according to compensatory logic.
Yes, sir.
Without even mentioning anything that happened yesterday, if you want to do it that way. Or you can do it by mentioning everything that ever happened, period. Every rock that ever turned over on the moon. You make sure that everybody knows that this particular rock turned over on the moon 80 trillion years ago. And the person says, well, that's nice to know that grain of sand blew across the desert, that one grain of sand, 45 quadrillion years ago, that one grain of sand you got in your hand, Mac, blew across the Sahara Desert. 45 trillion years ago. How about that, Mac? Isn't that nice to know? Yeah, that's nice to know, I guess it is. What about it? Well, it's just nice to know. Oh, okay. It depends
You're listening
on
to the
how
Counter
you want to
Racist.
use the time and energy that you have.
You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And let's go to Dallas. And we have here, I want to say Roy, but it doesn't really, it says RQY. So who am I speaking with from Dallas? Go ahead, you're on with Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Ray.
Ray,
Mr.
okay.
Fuller. Yes, sir. Mr. Fuller, why did you originally refer to the white supremacists collectively as digit man and digit woman?
As whom? Oh, digit man?
Yes, sir, and digit woman.
And digit woman. Because I was putting in a numerical value there. And I was saying that, you know, in my first exposure to computer language, they say everything is 1 and 0. Well, 1 is considered a digit, and 0 is considered nothing, even though a 0 is a digit, if you want to say that, because it exists. 1, 0, 0, 1. And I even designated my own name as that. Neely Fuller Jr., 10. That's on the back cover of the 1984 edition of the textbook for victim white supremacy. And people have asked me, what did that mean? I say, it means everything and nothing, because that's who I am. Everything comes from nothing, and nothing is everything, because nothing is something, or is it? And so it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek question, really, that goes on and on and on. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? What does it matter? That's another question. And so that's why I did it. It's just, it starts off trying to get the victims of white supremacy to think about everything. Mainly, what are we here for? Ultimately, that's the ultimate thought. What is everybody here for? We're here. Something put us here. You can call it by any name that you want to, but we know that we're here, or we think we know it. I mean, we're here. I pinch myself, and I have something called feelings. I didn't produce those feelings. They're just there. And so I say, well, who is Neely Fuller? And what am I? And what am I supposed to be doing? I'm here. I'm here. And from the evidence that I've seen, I'm here for a little bit of time. People are given two things when they're born, time and energy. So how am I supposed to be using my time, and how am I supposed to be using my energy? I went from 0 to a digit, and I'll go back to being a 0 again. The evidence shows that. So what am I supposed to be doing in between? I got time and I got energy. That goes with the territory. That goes with being me. Goes with being me, whomever me is. In other words, it's getting us to think about ourselves and our entire existence on this planet. Do we spend our time gang-banging in a prison cell? Is that the way we're supposed to be using our time and energy? Plotting what we are going to do? Getting another tattoo and going over another cell block and shooting somebody if I can get a zip gun, what they called it in the old days, handmade pistol, or a knife, or a shank, or something. Or I'm supposed to be a corporate boss. Is that what I'm supposed to be doing? Or I'm supposed to be laundering money, or selling drugs, or inventing something, a new type of airplane, or spaceship, What am I supposed to be doing? That's the question. Everybody asks that question at some time or another, because we start doing stuff, so we finally make a decision about what we're supposed to be doing. That's all it is. So the code is about answering that question, saying, making everything the way it ought to be, whatever that is. How about that? Since we're here, whatever H-E-R-E means. We're here. What are we supposed to be doing here? We're given what? Time. We're given energy. So logically speaking, solving problems. Why? Because we got problems. That's why.
Thank you, Ray, from Dallas. Do not be a stranger. Thank you very much. The chat room is going strong today, and in particular, and Mr. Fuller may hit on this today, but the full wants are going strong in the chat room. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? How do you plan on doing it? What do you expect the constructive result to be? That came from Mr. Fuller, but Dungeon E72 has also quoted that. Again, that's in the chat room. That's going strong in there. Don Cato, Mr. Fuller said this. Says, Mr. Fuller, would you please correct me if I'm wrong? On previous shows, I can recall you mentioning the importance of having a will prepared. Mr. Fuller, do you have a will prepared?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. I'll just answer that swiftly.
Okay. He said, if not, I'm certain to help you or anybody else located in the U.S. concept to get useful information and assistance in preparing one or any legal-related issues. If you are seeking help or know of someone, I can be reached at zioncattoj@gmail.com. Thank you for your time, everyone, and God bless. Yes, Mr. Fuller, I heard you mention that on several shows about the importance of having a will. And just for those who are becoming aware of the program, newly just tuned in, or even repeating for those who have not, just explain that very briefly, Mr. Fuller, about a will.
Yes. A lot of black people, particularly, a lot of black people who have what you call prominent name recognition. People, musicians, many of them, people who are in sports and entertainment, who have made lots of money. Their estate is a mess by what they call estate. After they're gone, the people start scrambling around, trying to figure out who's supposed to get what, and usually the white supremacists get a big chunk of it, sorting out the mess. Why? There was no will. There's some people who have written wills on the back of a cereal box. Just tear the box up and use the inside, and in their last day here, they just said, everything to Gloria, my wife, in Cincinnati. And that's all they put on there, and signed it and dated it. And you know what? That has wound up being in court as evidence of what the person's will was. No lawyer, no nothing. And they verify the signature. That's it. And that's better than having nothing. Like it's what a lot of black people die leaving nothing at all, not a scrap of paper, when it takes just 2 or 3 minutes, if that long, a couple of minutes, maybe 1 minute, to write some kind of will. And a lot of people have millions and millions and millions of dollars and a big mansion and 4 or 5 cars. and no will. They die in a car wreck suddenly, or just die of a heart attack, drop dead on the stage while they're entertaining, or of old age, as they call it, and no will.
Question:
Nothing.
Should that be notarized?
It should be, yes.
Okay,
if you
good.
if you can, right? Just have somebody witness it that's your
Okay.
signature,
Okay.
and make sure that it hasn't been duplicated by somebody else or something like that, and
Okay.
that's it. But most
Yes.
people don't even attempt to make one. I mean, and sometimes just talking to a lawyer, even a fresh person, what they call a freshman lawyer, I mean, starting his first day of practicing law, and he knows something about wills, and and they say, well, I'll do it for $25. I mean, hey, I'm sitting around here in the office not doing nothing. Nobody knows who I am and all like that. Hey, a simple will, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it in about 8 minutes. It'll take us, just wait here a while. I get my pen, and you got a will, and you walk out with a will, and just a simple will. Everything I got, it might be just simple language like that. Everything that I own, everything under my name, I give it to Lily Mae Jones, and that's my girlfriend, whatever, and it will hold up. Notarized by that lawyer, that's it. That's a slam dunk.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know that. They think it might be too complicated or take up too much time. It won't. It will not. So have that will made so that people don't have to fight for years, decades. Some people who have a lot at stake. I mean, there are people just arguing back and forth and going into court over and over and over and over and over again, trying to sort this out, trying to sort that out. Well, what do you think is his last, ideas or her last, did she show any indication? I mean, was her grandmother supposed to get it? I mean, and who was supposed to get the car? Who was supposed to get the house? Who was supposed to get all that land they left in Tennessee? I mean, hey, that's 568 acres of prime land. I mean, no will. Come on, So we're approaching another holiday, Halloween, and so just that little money you spend on Halloween, spend it on getting your will. That candy and stuff that you're going to spend to go have somebody go from door to door to scare somebody, which black people should stop all of that nonsense. We got people going from door to door scaring people already. We don't need no more of that. We don't need to teach anybody that either. They need to get rid of Halloween altogether, and black people can stop participating in it. I mean, you're eating candy, rotting your teeth out. It's not constructive activity. That doesn't come under the heading of constructive activity. Worship and death. That's all it is. So
yes.
Rather than Halloween, worship and death, you think about death and do a logical thing. Get a will.
Good information, Mr. Fuller. As we approach the station break, constructive results is what we're looking for. For Dungeon 72, let me say this. Good, better, best, never let it rest till your good is gooder and your best is best. How about that for try and spell? You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, here's the number, 516-453-9921. Make sure you depress or press the number 1 button, and you will get in rotation for your call or VGQ. Be brief, please. Chat room is also open. You can get on there, and occasionally I will take a peek and discuss what's on the chat. Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY@gmail.com. And it may get read today. I doubt it. I don't know, Gerald. I'm going to try. About 15 minutes, Mr. Fuller will discuss a little bit about his book. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to go to New York. And Helen B., guess what? It's you and Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. Do people change? Since the white supremacists program/condition non-white people to kill and mistreat each other, let's say a so-called gangbanger, non-white person, kills another non-white person and sent to greater confinement for life. Is it possible that person to change, to see the error in their ways?
Is it possible that a person can change while they are being in greater confinement in what they call the prisons? Is that the question?
Correct.
Yes. Oh, they might change right during the court session. They might say, oh, boy, did I make a mistake? Did I make a huge mistake? I mean, I never really intended to do none of that. But I wound up doing it for some strange reason. I killed 3 people. I can't believe I did that. There are a lot of people who are like that. And that's why I say you shouldn't make it retroactive like I said in the code. But I said in the code, there should be a law, universal law, that applies all over the world so it won't be any confusion. If you kill somebody, the next person you kill has got to be yourself, because you'll never be in touch with anybody else again. You'll never even talk to a guard in the prison again. Your solitary confinement will be just that, solitary. You will talk to yourself from now on. This is described in the book. It's called compensatory solitary confinement. And, when that door slams on you, you will never talk to anybody but yourself again, ever. Why? Because the people that you kill will never talk to anybody. They're solid. So you're going to experience the same thing that they are experiencing. That's logic. There's nothing cruel about that. They might say the 8th Amendment in the Northwestern Hemisphere. That's cruel and unusual punishment. Not really. You can make it very usual, and it definitely isn't cruel. It's logical. You should get what you put out. You put out death, you get death. But you don't have anybody pull a switch or put poison in you like they do now, where they have what they call the death sentence. You give yourself the death sentence because that's what you deserve as a killer. You kill people. You killed someone. You took someone out of the world. So you should go with that person. I mean, apologizing in the court to the family, that's almost laughable. That's so pitiful. And it's an insult. You don't apologize to the people who are still here. You apologize to the person that you killed. But since that person isn't here, that person is somewhere else, you go wherever that somewhere else is and apologize. That's logic. That's what you call justice. I mean, why not? You want to apologize? Don't apologize to some judge in court. He don't know anybody in there and whatnot. But you know who you killed. Even if you did it in a drive-by shooting, it was random. You didn't care. You didn't care about some 8-year-old girl, playing hopscotch, getting killed. No, if you cared, you wouldn't have been out there with that 9mm just, thinking that you're some type of cowboy or something. I'm ghetto great. Okay. Got caught. Okay. And we ain't mad at you. But logically speaking, you should want to go. Why? Because you want to apologize. You said to the judge, I apologize to everybody I inconvenienced. Yeah. No. Compensatory solitary confinement You'll be fed one meal a day through a trap door. You'll never speak to another person again once that door slams on you other than yourself. Entertain yourself. You're a great entertainer. You like to entertain people with that 9mm by taking them out of this world. Okay, entertain yourself because you got that same 9mm in there with you. That's your best friend. That was your partner in that business enterprise that you call your business, your drug business or whatever it was, your beef business, your gang business. That's logical. I mean, this is not no fun and things. Being a gangster is supposed to be fun. Okay, enjoy the fun. Enjoy the results of it. When you get what you put out, you get what you put out. Just like a farmer. The farmer plants corn, and so the farmer goes out there and, it's harvesting season. The farmer is looking for what? Looking for corn. See, I planted corn. Where did these peanuts come from? Somebody else must have been in this garden because I planted corn. I don't have anything against peanuts, but I planted corn. So if you're in the death-making business, you should worship death like they do at Halloween. And you should worship your own death. You should embrace it. Hello, death, my old friend. I'd like to get a little bit of what I've been putting out all these years. Ha, ha, ha. So you pick up that 9mm that's got one bullet in it. That's your only thing that's in that cell other than that plate that comes through that trap door to feed you once a day. The code book describes it as it is proposed. And you take that 9mm and you point it, put that barrel in your mouth if you want to do it that way, and pull the trigger. And then you join that great rim of wherever the other person went that you killed, and you can apologize. And maybe, depending on what the setting is there, if you just want to do some more gangster stuff, you do it there all over again, if that's your thing. But that's where you should be. The minute you kill somebody unjustly, I'm not talking about self-defense, you should go where they went. The minute you do it, when they catch you 2 years later, they say, well, you're way overdue, man. You've been breathing 2 years, and that person that you killed ain't been breathing for 2 years. Oh, that ain't even. I mean, you believe in being even, don't you? That's what you said when you said you was going to get your drug money. You're going to get even. Well, this is even. You killed the person. So now 2 years later, you had 2 years. I mean, you breathing. You ain't supposed to be breathing for no 2 years. I mean, what kind of deal is that? Where's your sense of honor? That's honorable. You should be gone the minute you did it. That's the logic. That's compensatory logic.
Thank you,
That's
L&D.
justice logic.
And thank you, Mr. Fuller, for what you just said. Thank you so much for that. Hopefully we'll take that under serious consideration.
You better believe it. Killing people is not a fun project.
Absolutely.
We think it is. We've been taught that by the white supremacists. Killing is fun.
Let me see here. Chat room had mentioned something earlier today. What have you done? Not you, Mr. Fuller, but to the audience. What have you done to produce justice? What have you done? Ask yourself that question. We're looking for constructive results. Constructive results. And also zeroing in on the for once. You need to understand that. Going across the pond to England. Mr. McKeon said this, Mr. Fuller. I've been watching a lot of videos online with the occult esoteric teacher Bobby Hemmett, and your message matches up with a lot of what he says. Mr. Hemmett speaks about black people functioning as pathological children. He also speaks white supremacy in its modern form, pretends to act friendly towards black people after they have conquered the planet. Mr. Fuller, please, could you speak on the reasons why black people have been reduced to functioning on the level of pathological children? And why do you think the white supremacists are pushing an agenda that they are self-appointed, they are the self-appointed guardians of the universe by putting on a friendly face to the whole world? Kind regards, Anthony McKen, London, England.
I don't know why they do this, other than just carrying on what they glorify in history. White people glorify in history the Roman and Grecian Empire. That's the model for the entire world. They say they base their entire civilization on that. But when you look at Tiberius, you look at Caesar Augustus, the first emperor, you look at Nero, you look at Julius Caesar, and you look at all the other people that went under the umbrella of being Caesars, like Napoleon Bonaparte later on. They didn't call him Caesar, but he's looked up to. Looked up to for what? Look at Haiti. What did he do in there? Did he go there saying, I'm going to do some wonderful things for these people? I mean, they don't seem to know too much. They don't know as much as I do about navigation or whatever it is that they don't know. And I'll just teach them the most constructive things that I know. No, I'm coming as a conqueror. And everybody is just worship as a conqueror. Caesar Augustus sending out his armies from Rome. Caligula all over the place, doing all kinds of things, including competing with his unborn child. I mean, I think he had, according to a movie that I have on my list, the I, Claudius series, and it's on the website listed, I, Claudius. And in there's a scene where Caligula, the great Roman emperor, I think it was his sister. He had a baby by his sister, but the baby wasn't born yet. So he ripped the baby out of his sister's womb and killed her in the process and ate the fetus, because he said that baby would grow up and take his place as an emperor. And that is the model that they want to lay out. They, meaning right down to this very day, they're talking about, we can't teach nothing about no CRT. We can't teach nothing about slavery or nothing like that. We can't teach nothing about how white people have mistreated black people. But we can glorify people like Julius Caesar and Caesar Augustus and Nero and all the rest of that gang, and then all the late Johnny-come-lateless imitating them, like Mussolini, like Adolf Hitler. Mussolini went into Ethiopia, according to the records I've seen, talking about we're going to have a resurgence of the old Holy Roman Empire. Let's go back to the day of Nero and Caligula and Caesar and Claudius and all the rest of those gangsters. And people in Sicily had picked it up, I mean, among white people themselves, saying, hey, we're going to be emperors. I mean, Al Capone in Chicago, I mean, hey, they were copying that model. You know, I mean, of course, Caesars, all of the Caesars, nothing but a bunch of gangsters. That's what they were. If you want to put that label on them, I do. Because that's what they were. They get in a gang and they went around conquering people and bragging about it. And this is what's been passed on to black people in answer to the question. All right? And the most potent form of gangsterism is the system of white supremacy. So you got black people running all over Southside Chicago. I want to be a gangster. I want to be a gangster. I want to kill my neighbor. I want to kill the boy that I grew up with. And we used to play hopscotch together or stickball together or whatever. I want to go over there in the other project and kill him. That's where that was handed down from. And they teach it in schools and talking about some critical race theory. We're just Johnny-come-latelys, just talking about how we've been mistreated. And they don't want to talk about that, but they'll glorify the Roman Empire. Stop teaching the Roman Empire. Stop glorifying any part of it. Call them what they are, a whole bunch of gangsters. And then the gangsters that came over to the Northwestern Hemisphere, why not teach that? Sir Francis Drake and Stonewall Jackson. You can just, the name goes, hey, you got a whole list of names to choose from. Just pick out anybody. Thugs, gangsters, smart ones. But you can be a smart gangster or a dumb one. But the whole idea of being any kind of gangster is not a constructive proposition.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. And now it is time to mention that you are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. And we're homing in on CR, constructive results. Mr. Fuller has written a book. The short title is The Code, but we also is known as the Counter Racist Code, and also the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. That's the long title for it. If your library doesn't have it, you can ask them to get that, because this book, according to, I think it was Monica in New York, mentioned that it could be in the libraries across this continent so that people could understand what Mr. Fuller is talking about. You need to get this book. At this time, Mr. Fuller, it is time for you to talk about this wonderful book. Go ahead, please, sir.
Yes, starting in 1956, 57, solidly, I started writing the first few pages of what I figured was the missing link, but I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I wrote about 4 or 5 pages. I think it came to about 6 pages of things to do and things not to do if you are a black person in the system of white supremacy. I was in a military uniform at the time, and I was in Japan up on a mountain. I had plenty of time.
Mm-hmm.
I hear a voice.
Yeah, we could get that out of there. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller. I'm working on that right now.
Yes, and I had about a year of what they call isolated time. I still hear that voice now. Okay, that's better. And so the race issue was boiling. We were hearing, it was boiling to the surface in Little Rock, Arkansas. The Little Rock Nine, they called it. And we were getting some transoceanic messages by transoceanic radio, bits and pieces. And so some of the black people who were there in the unit that I was assigned to, they would kind of talk about it, say, what's going on back there, you know? And we could see what was going on there in Japan where we were, and how some of the white people who were supposed to be working with us every day and whatnot, how they acted every now and then when they started having a few drinks. They would go down and tell the Japanese that black people had tails, you know. So if you ever see one of them naked, you'll see they got tails. They swing on the trees just like monkeys. And that's something I think that they told black people as far back as soldiers used to do it, white soldiers, when they were in France in World War I. They would tell the white women, you don't want to fool with them. I mean, they're animals, and they really got tails. They got them folded up. So if you ever get naked with one of them in that bedroom, you can go into shock because they'll unroll that tail, and you'll see it. It'll be flying all over the place while they're trying to get on top of you. So you want to stay away from them. They're nothing but monkeys. They're apes. And That's what they are. They look like apes, and that's what they told them. And so some of them were doing that in Japan when I was there in 1956. They tell the Japanese ladies that, because one black guy said he was in one of the what they call the hooches or whatever it is, where prostitutes were, and the black lady asked him, "Where's your tail? I want to see your tail. Where do you hide it?" And that was very common in World War II and World War I. It's been passed down. It's a generational thing. And so why would a white person do that? Because a black person is supposed to have a different status in the world than a white person. Sorry about that, buddy, but that's just the way it is. And that status is that you all are inferior people. You all ain't worth nothing. I mean, we just tolerate you, but, really, you shouldn't even be here. There shouldn't be nobody on the planet but white people. But y'all are here, just like the monkeys are here and the flies, and we tolerate flies and roaches. And so we tolerate you black people. But y'all really, y'all are just a bunch of scraps. I mean, it ain't worth nothing. Roaches, step on them. And so that's the way that frame of reference is. It's been handed down. So I start saying, okay, that's how I'm looked at. That's how I'm really seen. No matter how nice people might treat me, deep down they're saying, hey, that's one of those creatures. They ain't even people. They're animals. Like the guy said in the movie Godfather 1. They're nothing but animals anyway. Sell them the drugs. Let them lose their souls. In Godfather 1, the movie. So in 1956, I started writing a book. But I didn't know I was writing a book. I said, I'm going to write about 6 pages of how to deal with this situation on a daily level, addressed to the individual person being me. I started writing the first pages of the book for me only. And then later on, when I started doing some of the things that I had written, some people started asking me, say, Fuller, you talk kind of funny. You come up with ideas and you say things, and when you're around white people, you say things that I never thought of saying. And so I realized that I was on to something. I say, what this is a sort of a code for Neely Fuller. And that's what it was. So I started calling it that, my code, Neely Fuller's code. When you're around white people, this is what you do. And when you're around black people, this is what you do. Because we got a situation here that nobody seems to know how to handle. So everything is about do's and don'ts. So I got a list of do's and don'ts. That 6 pages turned out to be 1,300 eventually. And so I distilled it in 1984 in book form, and that came out to be the original textbook for victims of white supremacy. And there's a whole lot more that I'm trying to add as the years go by. Once I go over it, because it's just a bunch of scraps the way I threw it together. Sloppily written, and it's still sloppily written if you ask me. I'm a very poor writer, but I'm trying to get better. But the textbook for victims of white supremacy is just that, as of today. And the last edition was a 2016 edition, which I'm having some problems with right now, so it might not be on the market right now. But the original textbook, the 1984 edition, will be. I might have to address the 2016 edition later on, because lately I've come up with some problems with that book, and that I'm trying to iron out. So it may not be at the website of producejustice.com. It may be there, and it may not be there. But the 1984 edition and the Word Guide, they will still be there. So you can go to producejustice.com, And the book is designed for the individual victim of white supremacy. If you don't consider yourself a victim of white supremacy, you not only shouldn't be bothered with the book, you shouldn't be bothered with listening to this program if you don't want to, because this is all for victims of white supremacy. Some people have called in on this program and say, I don't consider myself no victim of no white supremacy. Well, that's okay to call in. It's okay to listen, because you had to call in and listen in order to find that out. Well, Neely Fuller says victims of white supremacy. I ain't no victim of nobody. I ain't nobody victimizing me. I can handle every situation. Well, the book is not for you.
Thank you very much.
ProduceJustice.com is where you go.
VGQ, Black Tony says, you have been victimized by a system set up to deceive, lie, cheat, steal, and blame you for what they, he has in quotations, have done to you. We have been taught to fall for it in every way, and conceptual language has directed us downward. But when you change the words of that system to produce truth and step up out of the downward way, the result is this. You and me, my brothers and sisters, are the survivors, something that they don't want you to understand, because they are the ones who are the weak ones. Reference Romans chapter 1, 22 to 32 in the King James Version. It starts off professing themselves to be wise. They have called themselves fools. Mr. Fuller, we have approximately, thank you, Black Tony, we have approximately 3 minutes and 20 seconds to go before we have to conclude the first hour. So before I let someone else call, I want you to take up about 2 of those minutes so that we can end this show and commence with the other show. So take it away, Mr. Fuller, on whatever you want to say. I know you talked about a will and so forth. What is it that you may want to relay to the listeners that have to go?
Well, I can just say that go out and get a will. Let's see, today is Tuesday in the Northwestern Hemisphere. Go ahead and get one made today, if you can, or set it up for tomorrow, and do it. Do it before the month is out. Just set that as a goal. This is the Halloween month. Think about, Halloween is about death. So if you're going to think about death, think about your own death. And do you have anything to leave anybody? Is there anything that you have to say to someone before you depart this world? Because you're going to depart this world. It might be this week. And do you want everything to be in order? I mean, if you had to leave right today, if you had to leave this planet today unexpectedly, you're walking along and someone jumps the curb in their car because they're Texan, and they hit you full 35 miles an hour, and you're suddenly dead. The car is very dangerous. I always say when you get in a car, consider yourself going on a combat mission in an airplane in World War II or something, and that you may not come back, because somebody dies in a car wreck every day. A whole lot of somebody's worldwide every day. We think nothing of it. But death from car wrecks, everybody who is listening to this program right now knows someone who was killed or seriously injured, could have been you, in a car wreck. Think about it. Everybody listening right now knows someone, some schoolmate, or going back to the college days, graduation day, and everybody started drinking and whatnot, and they hit the highway, carload of students, now graduates, going out into the world. 15 minutes later, all of them dead in a fiery crash, celebrating. So think about it. You can leave here at any time and prepare for it. Go get a will.
Okay. With that concludes the first hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Thank you for listening. If you have to go, but for those of you who are going to hang on, stay tuned for the next show, for the next hour that will commence in 6 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for listening. Okay, again, we are back. And welcome to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. We got an hour to go, so when you call in, and I'll give you that number, 516-453-9921. Make sure that if you have a comment, to press the number 1 button and be brief in your comment or whatever you want to say, or questions that you may have for Mr. Fuller. Just be brief with that. Chat room is open. You can get on there, and they are blowing up again. Good job, chatters. I see Swab made it in, and Maga VGQ's in there, produced 21. Rita, 888, thank you. JJ, Killer, Alfredum in there. Emery Lumumba, the Invisible Negro. Hey, guy. Jacoby Tukane, thank you. All regulars in the chat room. But you can get in there, too, and see what's happening. Question of the day was, what have you done or what are you doing to produce justice? We're still on the CR, which is we want some constructive results. Homing in also on the 4-1s. What do you want to do? When do you want to do it? Why do you want to do it? Where do you plan on doing it? And most importantly, the last one, what is the constructive result of what you want
to do.
Want to do. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Okay, here we go. Uh-oh, Daryl, excuse me. I said okay. Marcus, Long Beach. Man, you are there and you are in. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning,
Good morning, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Fuller, recently we had an approximately 3,000 barrel netting out to 126,000 gallon oil spill off the coast in Huntington Beach. And it's been declared a statewide emergency. You know, wildlife has already been killed and oil has been washing up on the shores and the beaches here. The company who owns the pipeline that caused the oil spill, either by offshore drilling or an anchor from one of the cargo ships hitting the pipelines, the pipeline was tested 72 times in 41 years for safety and environmental regulations. What does the code say about these natural disasters that can be prevented but have been caused because of human error?
Well, the code says that people should be error-proof. People spend a whole lot of money just destroying stuff and enjoying destroying stuff. The system of white supremacy builds to destroy. They're using that old Roman Empire model. I mean, you build up and you destroy what you build, including their own families. I mean, a lot of family intrigue. They kill each other. The emperors killed each other. The people on the emperor's staff would kill the emperor. And family members, the royal people, all handed down. All of the people who consider themselves royal. So they do the same thing to the environment. I mean, they believe in destruction for fun and carelessness, and they can take it too far. So that's evident. Sometimes trying to do something constructive, they don't pay too much attention to what they're doing. And they're saying, well, we get oil. It does give people a lot of excellent service and all like that. But we get kind of greedy, and more than kind of greedy. They get a whole lot greedy. This greed, this gathering, like the emperors did back in the old days. Can you ever get enough? No, I never can get enough. No such thing as enough. Not even enough is enough. Not even too much is too much. That's how the white supremacist system works. I mean, we just like enough of what? Of everything. Pleasure, yes, and pain. Hey, we like pain too. I mean, this everything. We want to get too much of everything, and then even too much is not enough. That's that whole what you call Roman civilization philosophy. And the white supremacist system is based on that endless royalism. In other words, we're not only like gods, we are gods. That's what they used to call themselves in ancient times. They used to appoint each other. Lady Libya, as depicted in the movie series BBC, I, Claudius, and Empress told Claudius, Claudius, make me a goddess. Make me a goddess. Please make me a goddess. Make me a god. Asking her nephew to make her a god. That philosophy is handed down to this day in the form of every white supremacist man. We not only want to be masters over these black people, that's easy. That's a piece of cake. I mean, that's real easy. I mean, that's simple. We can do that forever. We do that in our sleep without even thinking about it. But we want to be masters of everything in the universe. See, but what you're saying is you want to be God? We want to be greater than God ever thought about being. That's the way they think. And they prove it by their actions. Not enough to have a God. Got to be greater than God. For what? Just so I can walk around and strut around and beat on my chest and say I'm greater. I am. Nothing tops me. And not even me can top me. And I got to do something about that because I got to top me. Top you for what? Death and destruction? Yeah, I really like that.
Mm.
That's what we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And if we understand that, everything starts falling in place. Our entire existence on this planet as black people begins to make sense if we understand what I just said just now, that what we are dealing with. When you look at a white supremacist, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a person who thinks like that. Even those who don't think that they think like that, they think like that. Because that's the format for it.
All righty. Marcus, thank you for your listenership, and you know better. You don't have to be a stranger. Mr. Fuller, I've heard you mention many times that you were, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you were born in, let's see, don't tell me. Says here, Muskogee, Oklahoma. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
from Muskogee.
Yeah, I heard that before. Have you ever heard of the 1893 registry about the Muskogee Nation Act of 1893?
No, there's so many. There's so much paperwork on you know that whole Indian thing. I mean, and it's so confusing and so contradictory. It just goes on and on and on. Everything dealing with what you call Indian territory, and Oklahoma was considered just that, Indian territory. In fact, the word Oklahoma means land of the red man, literally. I have been told.
Anyway, Brother Fareed sent this in, said it was established, registry was established to identify citizens of that nation at the allotment of communal lands, I guess divisions, and dissolution of the reservation system and tribal government. In 1979, vote on citizenship excluded descendants of persons recorded only as Creek freedmen in the Dawes Rolls. Going to Muskogee, or rather going to Wikipedia, it says the Muskogee part of the Creek Nation. I guess the Creek was a part of a Native American indigenous tribe, rebranded in May of 2021 as simply the Muskogee Nation, is a federally recognized Native American tribe based in the U.S. state of Oklahoma. The nation descends from the historic Creek Confederacy, a large group of indigenous people of the southeastern woodlands. Official language includes Muskogee and a couple others that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, with the Muskogee retaining the largest number of speakers. They commonly refer to themselves as another word I can't pronounce, but all this is on the Wikipedia website under the Muskogee Nation. The only reason why I brought that up is because I remember you saying that you were from there, and the brother sent that in. So I thought that was for FY, for your information and for all of us. Okay, I'm going to this person here. Now, it says here just listening, but that's not a name. I'm going to cue you in. Now, are you in, or are you really just listening? Or did you have a question? Okay, you do not. Okay, Toussaint, you're on. Brooklyn's in the house. Go ahead, Toussaint. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Fuller. Hey, my question is, so as of late, I believe last week in New York, they started erecting statues, right? They erected a statue of John Lewis, a statue of Breonna Taylor, and a statue of George Floyd. And I had a really interesting thought, and a lot of times I see things, and it's hard for me to see things without hearing Mr. Fuller's voice in the back of my head. And so I was very conflicted because I was trying to figure out what the constructive result should be. I know a lot of people tend to say that we should see them as martyrs and inspiration to do better, but to me, I can't help but feel like subconsciously we're being reminded that we're victims of white supremacy, kind of in a look what I can do to you and look what I did to you. And so my question is to Mr. Fuller, do you remember what you thought back in the day, or when you've ever seen them erect statues of other victims of white supremacy when you were younger, or even erecting statues of anyone?
Well, what I thought when I saw people erecting statues?
Of victims of white supremacy.
Erecting statues of victims of white supremacy?
Yes.
Well, no, I never thought about it very much one way or another early on. But when I started putting everything within the context of white supremacy, and I heard some people of the Christian faith saying something about idolatry, and I raised the question naturally, well, what's idolatry? Say, well, making idols of statues and pictures and things like that, things that are not really the real thing. A statue of a person is not a person. It's a piece of bronze or stone or something. And so you don't worship, you don't bow down to nothing like that. And they say in the Christian faith, I mean, people who have all these statues of Jesus and whatnot, that's a form of idolatry. They're not supposed to have that. None of that's supposed to exist. That's idolatry. You don't bow down to nothing like that, something made in a factory. I mean, that's no connection with Jesus. Jesus is gone. I mean, and will return, so we've been told in the Christian faith. So you don't have any stand-in the form of a statue. I mean, that's a spirit. It's a spiritual thing. It's something you feel. You don't feel it by somebody making a statue or making some beads that you say there's a connection. And then people who make statues and beads, they say it is a connection, because when you make it a connection and you have that spiritual feeling, there is a connection, since everything that you're looking at is connected with Jesus, and Jesus is connected with God. So therefore, anything that you see is God-given. So if you use that kind of logic, you can say, well, what about a 60-millimeter cannon? designed to fire rapid fire and knock another plane out of the air, and mean a big explosion, like you see in the movies and whatnot. Is that, something, that you should worship? Because a lot of people are called gun worshipers, and they can very easily make a case. God and the gun, it's all the same thing. After all, guns destroy. Well, gods build and destroy, right? So there's the logic. So if you're going to be godlike, you produce things and you destroy things. And that's the white supremacist philosophy, too. See, it depends on what you want to do with stuff that you know or stuff that you learn. That's what it comes down to. Each individual has to make that decision. You learn this and you learn that, and you learn different sides and different viewpoints. And you, at some point, are supposed to say, well, what am I supposed to be doing? That's what it comes down to. I see people doing this, and I see people doing that, and I see animals doing this and that and the other. What am I supposed to be doing? So like at the beginning of this program in the first hour, I said, you're supposed to be solving problems. Why? Because you got problems. And what's the biggest problem for black people here in 2021, logically speaking? The biggest problem is you got to, or should be, dedicating yourself to one thing, replacing the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Why? Because it's the biggest problem maker on earth. It's the biggest problem solver on earth, but it's the biggest problem maker on earth. So just eliminate the problem making. But you can't do that under the banner of racism, because racism is designed to do both. Solve problems, make problems. Solve problems, make problems. Because the philosophy of a racist is that I'm God. So God makes problems and solves problems for people. So I'm God, or I want to be one, so I will make problems and I'll solve problems. And that's what a God does. And we worship gods because they're able to do both very efficiently. And so I want to imitate that.
Yes.
But people on this planet, logically speaking, are supposed to be, no. Rather than just try to take the place of God, just solve the problems.
Solve problems.
That we are assigned to solve, right?
Yes. Thank
Don't
you,
make
Toussaint.
any.
Thank you, Toussaint from Brooklyn, New York. Thank you. Don't be a stranger. John Raines, 4041. Thank you for listening to today's program. Thank you for being in the chat room. And let's go to here. Daryl, gotcha. The GQ. Mr. Fuller, this is a response to something I heard you say last week about us as black people avoiding conflict with each other over what we say. I'm all for black people not arguing and bickering amongst ourselves over petty differences. People should be allowed to express themselves and speak their piece. However, with that example you used of a black person telling another black person to, quote, stop talking, you don't know nothing, Negro. I think sometimes, and this is just a part of my personal code, but sometimes as black people, we have to tell someone amongst us to sit down and STFU. I'm not going to repeat what that means, but anyway, seriously, because if you haven't noticed, Mr. Fuller, we have folk amongst us who just babble nonsense ad nauseum, and if we don't shut it down, those wayward ideas and talking points will just fester for generation after generation. One you bring up all the time is, quote, we got to come together, and like you always ask, come together and do what? End of quote. I'm talking along those lines, Mr. Fuller. In the end, we got to put some accurate and precise info and not a bunch of old, tired cliches and slogans. We're at a serious time right now in our history, and in order to get codified, we can't allow a lot of willy-nilly silly talk amongst our ranks just for the sake of it. VGQ, peace. That came from Daryl. Let's go to Josh in, I'll just say Kentucky. Josh, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question? Okay, Josh, going once. Josh, going twice. Third time,
Hello?
Josh.
Hello?
Yeah, come on, man. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
I'm sorry, you guys are on mute. Real quick, Mr. Fuller, if someone created their own code and it got us to the goal of universal man and universal woman quicker, would you stop practicing your own code and go to the other person's code since it's faster to get us to the goal?
Well, really, there's no such thing as another person's code. I always say go to the code, which is based on logic. The logic that's in the universe. It belongs to everybody. It already belongs to everybody. There's no such thing as Neely Fuller's code. Neely Fuller has a label on what he says about logic. Because all I'm doing is talking about mathematics. Mathematics was here when Neely Fuller got here. Neely Fuller is a result of mathematics, some type of equation, some type of formula. I have fingers. My fingers are different from my toes because my toes are on my foot and my fingers are on something called a hand. I mean, this is just the way it is. And all a code really is recognizing what is. It's there for everybody. Okay? Now, what Neely Fuller does do, he puts it in the form of words, and words are nothing but a signpost that points to the hand. The hand is already there. My hand already exists. So I just put a description of my hand in words. That's all. So if somebody else puts a description of what they're going to do in words, it's not like, they're competing with Neely Fuller or Neely Fuller adopting somebody else. No, it's all very fluid. But if Willie Jones says, "This is my hand," and holds up his hand, well, that's Willie Jones saying that's Willie Jones' hand. And if Neely Fuller sees Willie Jones doing this, and he says, "Yes, that's Willie Jones' hand, but I have a hand too." So I put my hand up and I say, "This is Neely Fuller's hand." Well, all we're doing is just pointing out what's already here. So it's not like it's some type of contest going on or some type we getting together or something like that. We're just pointing out what's there. That's all anybody has to do. You point out what's there. You find what's there. You find what you're supposed to be doing with what's there. Like your hand is there. What are you supposed to be doing with your hand? Are you supposed to be building something or destroying something? Take your choice, because your hand, that's why they say in court, you had a hand in this. Your hands are very important. Mm-hmm. So you're just recognizing whatever's going on. That's all a code is, recognizing what's already there and seeing it for what it really is and calling it exactly that. That's why the white supremacists are so nervous when I start saying white supremacy or systemic racism, they call it. I didn't say anything about systemic racism, but it is that. Mm-hmm. Systemic racism is a system. What do you want me to call it? Something else? Is that going to make it any different from what it is? Is it or isn't it? All problems are solved through what? The process of questions and answers. So that's a question. You don't want me to use the term systemic racism. You say that's a no-no. Ban that from the schools. I said, well, the system of white supremacy in capital letters, how about that? Ban that too. They haven't said that yet, but they'll get around to it. And when they do, I'm going to say, okay, question, what do I leave in the schools? The glorification of Julius Caesar? And you call that a civilization? Is that a civilization? Did Julius Caesar, Tiberius, or any of them, Caesar Augustus, the first emperor, did he have a civilization? What was civilized about it? Name something. And then name a whole lot of things that he did that were uncivilized. Are there any things that he did that was uncivilized that you would want to see happen now? Burning people at the stake and all this kind of stuff? Is that civilized? Yes or no? See, all problems can be solved according to the code, according to logic, through the process of what? Questions and
answers. Thank you very much, Josh from Kentucky. Don't be a stranger to the program. Let's see here. Jacoby 2 Kane 2 says that Mr. Fuller is a great storyteller. People like to hear your stories, Mr. Fuller, about where you were in, Japan? And were you in Korea also, Mr. Fuller?
I was in Korea on the front lines after I got there. They took me right, we were on a train. I remember those mountains around Daegu and how tall they were. And I said, yeah, I've heard that cowboy song about burp guns and mortars and high mountains. They'll drive you crazy. They'll drive you insane. And that was ringing in my mind when I looked out that train window, winding around those mountains around a place called Daegu in Korea. Mm-hmm. We were approaching the front lines, and I'd heard about in 1950. I went into the Army in 1951. They drafted me, one of the last people in Muskogee, Oklahoma to go among black people. I was 21 years old, and I remember with my newly issued carbine and boots and helmet, I'm looking out the window of this slow-moving train in the mountains, and I'm saying, now, this is what I'm up against. I got to be here at least a year if I make it. And I'm looking at all these mountains, and they say these mountains are honeycombed with 61-millimeter mortars. And they can lob these shells right down on this train at any time. And we were bunched in there like sardines. And I said, oh, boy, I'll never make it out of this alive. In a couple of hours, we're going to be up there on the front lines. And that's where I'm going to be. They sent us straight to the front, and they told us, you are replacements. It's at Camp Drake, Japan. Some sergeant came out, said, you men are replacements. You'll be going to the front lines as soon as you arrive in Korea. And we're processing you here for new equipment. So take care of your equipment, take care of yourselves, take care of your comrades. So they might be the last people you'll ever know, because you're replacements. Replacements mean what? For the people who just died in Korea, that we are bringing right back here in Japan from Korea. Japan. So you're going to be taking their place on the front line. And from the look of this bunch, I'll say half of you ain't going to make it. That's what a sergeant said at Camp Drake. That was our send-off.
That was your send-off. I'm glad your send-off wasn't that song where you said, I told you that I love you, now get out.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Thank you for all your listenership, and thank you for all your chat room. and your VGQs. In about 15 minutes, Mr. Fuller will speak about his book, which you should get and can get at ProduceJustice.com. But we want to thank you in advance for all of your listening to today's program. To get in contact in the remaining moments, you can do that by calling 516-453-9921. Make it quick because we're running out of time as usual. You can also go to my Gmail at 7MrBobby@gmail.com. Let me repeat that. The numeral 7, Mr. Bobby @gmail.com. Chat room is available for your commentary, and they are in there, and they're in there hard today. Critical, or rather not critical, but constructive results are what we're looking for. And the 4 wants, which I'm quite sure that Mr. Fuller will say at least once before we get off of the air. Okay, let's see here. Sorry about that, Darryl. Raymond, I believe. You're next up. Oh, yeah, I better get this. Raymond from Georgia. Raymond, you're on. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Bobby. Good morning. Morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, my question is, during the system,
yeah,
truth is keep producing non-constructive.
You're breaking up, sir.
No, I'm saying that is the truth. The truth. Why is the truth producing mostly non-constructive result during the system during this time right now?
I didn't get the question.
I didn't either. Raymond, could you repeat that? Because your phone is breaking up. Could you repeat that, please, sir, quickly?
Yeah, it's raining down here. All right. The truth, TRUTH, the truth. Why is the truth in the system of racism, white supremacy? It's produced mostly non-constructive results right now at this time.
Oh, anytime you have confusion, it's because the truth is not understood for some reason. Truth is what? What is the definition for truth? The compensatory definition is truth is 3 words. That which is. That which is what? Is what it is. Calling everything what it is. That's the truth. Whatever it is, call it the way that it is. That's a slang expression among black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere. It's been around forever. Tell it like it is. We say that all the time. That's accurate. See, and that's what everybody should search for. You cannot solve a problem without the truth. You got to have that. If you have falsehood, you got what? Confusion. When you think something is something other than what it is, it's something else. It's not what it is. You mistake an egg for a rock. Well, an egg is not a rock. A rock is a rock, and an egg is an egg. So you have to know the difference between an egg and a rock. And that's truth, when you know the difference between things. But the white supremacists are masters at confusing people by not telling the truth. They come among people and they spread falsehood. Falsehood is the absence of truth. They say things that are not true. People who are called red people, there's an old cliche about, they say, white man, speak with forked tongue. Say one thing, do another. Very confusing. Make your head hurt. He's so confusing. He'll say he'll do something, and then he'll do just the opposite of what he said he'll do. He won't keep a promise. He breaks treaties. He's a very strange person. he doesn't believe in telling the truth. There's a slang expression that I'd heard, I don't know how true it is, but they say honest Injun. They said that the white supremacists came among the Indians and said, hey, we'll take these people to the cleaners. Because they always tell the truth. They don't know what a lie is. So, hey, we lie all the time. We lie among each other. I mean, lying is something we become experts at. So we will fool them. We will fool their socks off. We will tell them this and tell them that, and we'll have them running in circles in no time, which they did.
Shameful. All right. Raymond, thank you. You know the deal. Don't be a stranger. Gary, Maryland, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. My question is, why are white people or the white supremacists so against this critical race theory thing when it could solve the problem, and it's all those bad stuff is still happening? So, I mean, the problem needs to be solved, and that's my question.
All right, Mr. Fuller.
I don't know, but we can. The code says when there's a controversy, the controversy is usually called by a misunderstanding of what we just said a few minutes ago, the truth. So what you do is just say, well, do you want to teach the truth in school or not? So let's first of all find out what the truth is. That's the first thing you do. What is the truth about everything that everybody did? If you're going to teach history, teach it all. Don't carve it up into nice, neat little packages. You say, yeah, but if you tell it like it is, it makes people feel bad. So what? You feel bad when you go to a doctor. That's why you go to a doctor, okay? You go to a doctor feeling bad. So feeling bad ain't the worst thing in the world. Well, the white students, they start feeling guilty. Well, are they guilty? Well, they're not guilty. They're not guilty of what their parents did. Well, just say that. Well, whatever their parents did, say that too. But they don't want to feel guilty about their parents. Well, in other words, is that the truth? Did their parents do something that they shouldn't have done? Yes or no? Did their parents do something that they should not have done? Yes or no? Well, yeah, they did a lot of things. Well, what were those things that they did? That's a question. Enumerate them. And then say, can I do better than my parents? That's a question. And if the answer is, yes, I can do better, well then, you can start doing better by facing the truth. How about that? How about them apples? I mean, now, whose feelings are hurt? It ain't about hurt feelings. It's about getting things done, ma'am, sir.
Sir. Mm-hmm.
That should be done in order to do what? Produce the most constructive result. And you can't get nothing done by continuing to tell lies. That's just making more problems.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much. Mr. Fuller, manipulation through the use of words. You have written in the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, simply the code, you have also with that a word guide. We're getting into your book here. What is since there are people who are skilled in manipulating words, the importance of that word guide and also the importance of obtaining a copy of the code book and why?
Yes, it's in order to look at the word guide and the word guide is just a guide. A lot of people say, well, Fuller, you got this word guide, man, but it's a whole lot of words you don't have in there. There's millions and millions of words I don't have in there, and word phrases and how to use them and all like that. I mean, I would be writing forever trying to do that. So it's just a basic word guide to show, just to direct the victims of white supremacy about how to use words in a white supremacist setting. Words are nothing but tools, just like a pair of pliers or something that you pull out teeth with. Something that you pull teeth with is not made like something that you, like a screwdriver or something. It may look like that, but they say these are dental tools. These, the tools that you find in a dental office are not the same you will find in a carpenter's kit, because the carpenter's kit is made to deal with woodwork. And then you look at another toolbox and say everything in here deals with steel. I mean, I got, everything I got in my box, of course, I'm a steel worker, I'm an iron craftsman. And so you got carpenter tools, that's what they call them. You come to the hardware store, they say, well, we can take you over here where the carpenter tools are. That's not over here where, you work on cars and whatnot. Everything over here is for woodwork. You work on cars, you get metal tools that deal with metal, even though a lot of the tools that are metal do carpentry work. So you have to know the difference. Words are no different. You get the words that will work to do what? To do the best job. The best job of doing what? Of producing constructive results. And you get rid of the words that don't. Or you raise questions about the words, even if you have them around. Or you redefine the words. And that's where the word guide comes in. Like in the textbook for victims of white supremacy, I have my own definition of the word justice that I came up with in 1994, because I thought that there was a legal definition for justice, but I found out there's no legal definition for the word justice. And that kind of took me aback. I said, there's people talk about justice, and there's no clear-cut definition for the word justice as much as people talk about it. Well, if you don't have a clear-cut definition, how do you know when you got it and when you haven't? They say, well, you don't, really. I mean, except whatever you want to think. I said, man, that ain't going to hold up at all. That doesn't make sense to me. So I came up with a compensatory definition that I thought would work. And that was what? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most always gets the most constructive help. And if you don't have that situation, you don't have justice. You got to guarantee that nobody's being mistreated. And you got to guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help immediately. Now, that has never happened in the history of the known universe in recorded history. But it's the goal that everybody should set. Based on what? Neely Fuller's word guide? No. Based on logic, if you're going to have a definition for justice at all. So I did that same thing throughout the entire textbook for victims of white supremacy in the word guide. And the word state, which I was looking at earlier today, just before I came on the program, just to make sure that it was in that book, because I had forgotten that I'd put it in there. I'm getting forgetful about a lot of things. So I looked to see if I had that in there, and it is in there. What is a state? A state is a person. So every person in the universe is a state. A state of what? A state of being. That's what. So when you say United States, you mean united persons. Then what makes people united? Are people united? People are united and they are disunited. minute by minute, all over the planet every day. According to what? According to logic. See, once I set that definition, what is a state? A state is a person. And then I added another word, United State. And then I add a question. When a person is united, what does that mean? United in what? And you can say if people are united when they're sitting around a table laughing and enjoying each other's company. They're united. They're sitting there eating. They're united in their agreement that those scrambled eggs they're eating are delicious. So these are United States. Why? Because all those 12 people sitting there eating are united in agreement that those eggs are delicious. They all said so, and they're gobbling them up and asking for more. Those eggs. These are the best eggs. Where did you get these eggs? How did you fix them? What did you put them in? They got a flavor to them. What did you put? What did you add to them? I mean, give me two more. Everybody at the table said that. So they're united. But then, are they united in everything? Before that breakfast is over, somebody might say something that somebody else didn't like, and they're turning over the tables. I mean, the eggs are flying everywhere. So now they are disunited. So people are united and disunited all the time when it comes to what? When it comes to something. So when you say United States, what are you talking about? I mean, that's, you know, what are you really talking about?
All righty. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Fuller. Thank you very, very much. I want to give a shout-out to special people in the DMV. Yeah. I listen to a radio station on the DMV, too. Yeah. But anyway, thank you. I know, Mr. Fuller, you are in the DMV, and I have been there, but, you know, wow, a long time. All righty. Let's see here. Okay. Furland Petrus said this, Mr. Fuller. Said the so-called colored people in South Africa are foolishly fighting to be so-called colored as distinct from being called black. Is it correct to recognize that white people first classified people as black or colored, and that so-called black or colored people who say that they are black and proud are foolish to be so proud of the label that their white owners gave them? There is even a beer in South Africa called, quote, Black Label, end of quote, made by the white racists there. Their Saturn is on full display for all who care to see it. Thank you. This comes from Mr. Petrus in South Africa. Colored in black. What do you think about that, Mr. Fuller? Or I guess that's what he's asking, so-called people. Is it correct to recognize that white people first classified black people as black or colored, and that the so-called black or colored people who say they are black and proud are foolish to be so proud of the label that their white owners gave them?
Well, the code says, according to the code, and it's in there, people are flawed. All people are flawed. All people make mistakes. If you make mistakes, you are a flawed person, okay? Let's say that's right universally. Wherever you are, you're a person that makes mistakes, and everybody makes them. You're a flawed person. So a flawed person shouldn't be proud of anything about themselves because they are flawed. So you never say that you're proud of anything. Gay pride or any kind, black pride, white pride. First of all, you didn't have anything to do with it. Or did you? And even if you did have something to do with it, being black, being gay, being white, you don't have to say that you're proud. Why? And you shouldn't say it according to code, according to logic, the logic of the universe. No person should ever say that they're proud of anything. I don't care what they accomplish. You still haven't done enough. Why? Because the world is not the way it ought to be. That's why. And you're in the world. If you're going to be proud of something, if it's necessary to be that, and it certainly isn't, be proud of solving every problem on the planet. Now, set that as a criteria, not being black or being white or because you invented the wheel. The wheel is just one thing. Did you invent everything? Do you know how to solve every problem instantly that everybody has? Well, no, I can't do that. Well, if you can't do that, what are you proud of? Well, I'm just proud of the little bit that I can do. Well, for what? All these problems that are around you every day. And you're talking about strutting around having a parade, talking about you're proud. You're talking about you're the tribal chief and you're proud. And your people are hungry. You're talking about you're the leader of a nation and you're proud. And you got somebody that starved to death today. You got somebody that had a disease that wasn't cured. And you're proud, whether you're white or non-white. We're not just talking about labels here. We're talking about doing things. Doing things. Doing things. Like what? Things like what? Like solving all problems. That's what. Have you solved all problems? That's what. You start talking about having a parade and getting some balloons and some tinsel and some crepe paper and marching up and down the street. You look silly. Silly to whom? To your creator. That's to whom. You ain't even got started. You're talking about having a parade. You ain't eligible to have a parade. Whether you're white or non-white, or what your label is, colored. I'm a proud male. I'm a proud female. I'm a proud gay person. Shut up, everybody. Just shut up and think about what you're saying, and then look at what you're doing. Have you solved all problems? The answer is no. Well, then get out of the proud business altogether. Get out of it. Forget about being proud. Get over there and get on that blueprint of solving problems. Get a move on. You haven't even gotten started. That's all of us on this planet. That's the way to look at it in order to qualify for the first beginning of what? What we should be and should have been in the beginning. Universal man, universal woman. And by codified definition, what is that? People who have solved all problems. That's what. If you're not a person who has solved all problems, get out of the proud business altogether. Never say that you're proud of anything. You haven't even gotten started.
Mr. Fuller, thank you. Does the term BIPOC, Black Indigenous People of Color, that's going on in the chat, does that mean anything to you?
Indigenous people?
It said Black Indigenous People of Color. I guess it's the latest acronym or one of the latest acronyms. I had to look it up to see what those initials stood for. Black Indigenous People of Color.
I don't have it.
Or what would the code say about that?
When people use that term, ask them, what does that mean? In starting with the first word and then the second word, and then we assume we know what people are. But indigenous black people, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
So the code says all problems are solved by doing what?
Questions and answers.
Questions and answers. So you ask a question. what does that mean? What should it mean? All right? And what's going to be the constructive result of me knowing what it means? Those are three questions.
Okay.
What does it mean? What should it mean? And once I find out what it means, what's the constructive result of me knowing that? And what am I supposed to do with it? That's another thing. I'm a black indigenous person. Now, what am I supposed to do with that? It all comes down to what you're going to do to solve a problem. Now, what am I going to do with that to solve a problem? And what problem am I going to solve with that?
Okay. Let me say this before we finish here, because we have exactly 4 minutes and 6 seconds. Raymond from Georgia, tell you what you do, and excuse me, not Raymond from Georgia, Ray from Dallas. And Swa, the time is short, so this is what we can do. If you two were to call in on next week's show, which will be the 12th of October, you tell the call screener who sees what's going on and can bring you right to the top so that I could answer your question, or have Mr. Fuller answer your question, because right now it would not give you the due diligence that you need to answer your question. So I'm going to, which is a bad word, assume that you will call in next week. And when you do, not if, I got to change the if to when. When you do, just tell that to the call screener, because they listen to Mr. Bobby. Yeah. Just give the call screener what's up, and then they will let me know you're on, and we can go right to you. Mr. Fuller, my clock says, the countdown clock says we have 2 minutes to go. We know we can get your books and all the materials from ProduceJustice.com. In the remaining 2 minutes, I'm going to give that floor to you. And what say you, Mr. Fuller, as we close it down again?
Well, on other programs I've said, go to page 171, 172 of the code book under economics. I think that's where I put it. And go to the 4 wants and concentrate on that. What do I want to do? Why do I want to do it? How do I plan to do it? And what do I expect the constructive result to be? But also, I can also say, every day when you wake up, and, if you take the book with you to work or anything, or just before you go, if you don't take it, turn the book over to the back cover and just forget about the author, that top line, few lines talking about Neely Fuller, and just read everything that's on that back cover of the book. And that will keep your focus, maybe, about what this entire world is about and your place in it and what you're supposed to be doing. And just the quotes from that.
Yes.
I mean, just go through it. I do it every now and then myself. Even though I wrote it, I don't remember everything that I wrote from day to day because my memories began to get shallow. But I just turned the book over. I did it this morning.
Yes.
I turned the book over and looked at it, and then I started my program.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Go to ProduceJustice.com.
ProduceJustice.com, because we want constructive results. Thank you for listening, especially through all the mistakes that I make. But guess what? I'm still learning, and I'm going to make some more mistakes too. But thank you for listening. Thank you for all of your calls. Thank you, everybody that's in the chat room. Mr. Fuller, thank you, and I thank you. And we will try to do better next week. Thanks for listening. ProduceJustice.com.